Thank you, Scott. We're opposite because he's tall, I'm short. He can walk, I can't. And again, we are here to celebrate Dutch and Rosemary's 65th wedding anniversary. We're also, and it's hard to get to 65 years to be married. And I really realize it now because Mary Ann and I have been married for 35 years. And when we think about 30 more years, it seems like a lot longer. Well, it helps us really appreciate 65 years, but also it's hard to survive long enough to celebrate your 65th wedding anniversary. And they had a little brush with that a couple of nights ago, and it could have been a lot worse. And so we're also celebrating them being alive for this period of time, to be able to celebrate that and actually to get through this week. So we're really lucky. When I knew that we were having this party, I recall a story I heard about another couple that was celebrating their 65th wedding anniversary. And they had celebrated their 25th, their silver anniversary, at their favorite restaurant, the Ocean View. And they went there because the wine was so good. They had a great wine list. And then 10 years later, they decided to celebrate their 35th wedding anniversary at the Ocean View because they not only had a great wine list, there was a great view. And then 15 years later, when it was time to celebrate their golden anniversary, the 50th wedding anniversary, they decided to go to the Ocean View because not only did they have great wine and a great view, but also they were wheelchair accessible. But then, 15 years later, it's time to celebrate their 65th wedding anniversary, and the kids asked them, well, where would you like to go? They said, let's go to the Ocean View. We've never been there before. Well, that's not the case with us here in Palmbrook because I was here, I think, with many of you 5 years ago when we celebrated the 60th wedding anniversary. And they've been here and enjoying Palmbrook and the Palmbrook Club for a long time. Now I'm going to share something with you that will surprise many of you. It's kind of a secret, but it's time that the secret is out. My father actually flew airplanes for the United States Navy. Now, I know you're shocked. You didn't know that. He's kind of kept that under close hold. But it's important that we all know where he's coming from. And so I thought I would kind of reveal that to you because the Navy has been such an important part, an important theme in the 65 years that my parents have been married. They met while my father was in the Navy. You see these pictures here of Lieutenant J.T. Dutch Schultz and 20-year-old Rosemary Schultz in 1949. And 38 of the 65 years that they were married, he was on active duty and she was on active duty as a Navy wife. And they were a team. To be successful as an officer or an enlisted, in a long career in the Navy, you have to have a team. They did 26 moves together. 26 moves together. They lived overseas 3 times. In the process, they also raised 2 sons, Scott and myself. And somewhere in there, about 40 years ago, I became a naval officer, so I kind of brought into that Navy theme as well. And then in 1987, it was time for them to leave active duty in the Navy. So the Navy's been a big part of the 65 years that they've been married. People ask me, what was it like growing up in the family of a naval aviator? How many of y'all have seen the movie The Great Canteen? A few of you haven't, and you can see that because Scott and I kind of lived that world a little bit. It's about this guy who's larger than life, full of bravado, self-confidence, irreverent, icon of American heroism. He's a head of the family. And that was the guy that came home to us, Scott and I, when we were growing up, from the various deployments and from the squadron. And if you've seen the movie, there's a lot of things in there about Santini, who was kind of this great figure, but also some negative sides of Santini. And he didn't have, my dad didn't have those things. He kind of, I call him the better Santini. But if you watch the movie or read the book by Pat Conroy, the real hero in that movie is Lillian, his wife. She is the rock that holds the family together, while Santini is out there taking on the world and doing all the great things that heroes do. But somebody's got to pay the bills. Somebody's got to raise the children. Somebody's got to keep the household together. And that was my mother. That was my mother, the woman that I looked up to, who took care of Scott and me, pulling us apart with a crowbar sometimes. And it was my mother that went to the football games that I played in because my father was deployed, flying airplanes. And so that is kind of that world. This book takes place, the movie takes place in the 1960s, we grew up in. If you want a sense for the ethos of the naval aviator, I might point out to you that in my father's office, he's got this saying, a frame on the wall. And it says that the average naval aviator, despite his somewhat confident, swaggering exterior, is actually capable of such feelings as love, and affection, and intimacy, and compassion. These feelings, however, just don't involve anybody else. And he was given this plaque by my mother. Who understands that better than anyone. In 1987, after 43 years in the Navy, and 38 years with my mother, he's getting nervous again. My father and my mother left the Navy. They stayed very engaged with the Navy in a lot of ways. My father was involved with building the collaboration between the defense industry and the active duty military to build the combat naval aircraft of the 21st century, while my mother was actually very involved in charities and supporting the Naval Institution in a lot of different ways in the Washington area, the Navy Relief and a lot of other things. And she was selected to be the sponsor for the USS Tortuga, a capital ship for the amphibious Navy. And if you don't know what a sponsor does, you've probably seen those old videos of an attractive woman taking a bottle of champagne and cracking it against the hull of a ship as it slides then off into the ocean to go off in support of our nation. Well, she did that. She was the sponsor and cracked that bottle of champagne against the hull of the USS Tortuga, launching it into the ocean where it still continues to serve our nation today. So that was a great honor that the Navy bestowed upon my mother for her service in many years at my father's side. In the early 1970s, my mother's parents were early settlers in Sun City. It was the Wild West back then. And then when they passed away, when both of them had passed away in the 1990s, Dutch and Rosemary came out to start taking care of their affairs and looking through their home, and they liked it here. And in 2 weeks, 1 year became 3 weeks the next year, and pretty soon they're staying a couple of months. And a few years later, in the early 2000s, 2002-ish time frame, they decided they wanted to move here and spend the rest of their lives here. And why? Why did they make that decision? They were happy in Washington. They had a community of people, Navy people, and he was somebody there, and she was somebody. Well, why did they come here? Because of you. Because you welcomed them and they felt at home with you. They felt a sense of community with the people in this room, with Palmbrook, and they said, let's move out there. We like it out there. Not just the weather, not just the golf. but we like the people out there. And they've decided to spend the rest of their lives out here with you.